Step into luxury at Infinity of Omaha. Explore our full lineup, like the sophisticated Infinity QX50 or the spacious Infinity QX60, each offering premium comfort, advanced tech, and thrilling performance. Receive 1.9% APR for up to 75 months. Plus, receive $1,000 winter bonus on the 2025 Infinity QX60 lineup. Visit us online at infinityofomaha.com today with approved credit. Tax, title, license extra. When financed with Infinity Financial Services. $299 doc fee due at signing. VIN number SC344372. Offer expires December 31st, 2024. See dealer for details.
Welcome to the Real Chat Podcast,
where we talk business, lifestyle, and mindset.
For the modern entrepreneur.
I'm Baxter Colburn.
I'm Allison Elise.
I'm Mandy Wilkie. Let's chat.
All right, so today we have a very special episode of The Real Chat. We apologize we're a day late, but we promise it's worth it because honestly, we are all very surprised because nobody knows what's happening on today's episode. We don't even know who this guest is that Allie brought in off the street today. It's one of those shows.
I met her in person today.
Mandy's been on a boat. We've all been on vacations. We've been doing all kinds of stuff.
Yes.
It's just kind of one of those classic Real Chat podcast episodes of like, here we go, let's see what happens, right?
Impromptu.
Correct.
Yeah,
we do that best.
Spontaneous.
You as our listeners really like that, which
Correct.
I like. And honestly, I had been, after our text messaging last night, I was like, gosh, who could I think of? What do I have going on tomorrow? Who could I think of to invite onto the podcast? And I was like, I'm just thinking out loud and I'm reaching out to people. Everybody's busy because it's the day before the podcast, right?
Right.
But I had a meeting because if you guys don't know already, the space we sit in is also my studio and it's also a space that you can rent and we love it. And I had a meeting that had been rescheduled, 3 times we rescheduled. But I think God kind of had our back in that way because we met today right before this. And as we sat down, I was like, do you want to be on my podcast?
And she happens to be dressed beautifully.
And
She is, yeah.
She was
Ready
not
for
even
She got the memo.
prepared for
She's
this.
ready.
Yeah.
Her name is Amber. And I actually knew of her for a while because she works at my daughter's school that she's not going to be at anymore.
Okay.
But if you haven't already seen her, she's just very beautiful. And I just one day was to my daughter, Addie, I was like, isn't she just the cutest human?
You were kind of fangirling over her, right?
Fangirling without even knowing
Rightfully
who she was.
so.
I was just like,
Rightfully
you know
so.
what? As a woman, from woman to woman, when a woman has really good style, she deserves a compliment.
Absolutely.
And
For sure.
there were mornings it was like super cold outside and there's Amber standing at the stop sign with her adorable hair and her little headband with her coffee mug and her mittens and her cute little jumpsuit. And I'm like,
Just ready to go to
it
work.
is snowing. It's 12 degrees outside.
And she is smiling.
There's Amber showing
Correct.
up.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Amber, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Yes. I want you to tell us and our followers a little bit about who you are, what you do, and of course, why you're here.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
So my name is Amber Broihier. I am a dean of students at an elementary school. So that's how I know this beautiful lady. I've seen you before anyway.
Yeah.
I am currently launching my own business. I haven't actually launched it yet, but I'm at that point. About a month ago, I just had this idea. I say it was a message from God, to be completely honest, taking all of my skills and all my gifts and all of my knowledge and putting it into this. And so I am going to start teaching self-love classes. They're going to be an hour-long classes. They're $25 a class. And basically, I am going to take all of my tools and all my knowledge and all my skills and all my experiences and start teaching our community how to love themselves, their whole selves.
That's amazing.
Which is what I need.
I feel like
That's
we
what
should
were
clap,
reading about.
right?
Yeah.
Like, I was like, wow,
If we
like, that's
pre-register,
amazing.
can we get
Yeah.
a group discount?
Yeah, right. Can we do a
Yeah.
session now for all of us, right? I
Yeah.
think that would
I
be
was
very
like,
important.
I'm subscribing. I'm
Yeah, that
subscribing
sounds
right
amazing.
now.
Yes.
That's what we were meeting about today before this.
So you were
because,
meeting to be a client of hers?
not to be a client of hers.
Okay.
She is going to host a class inside of the space that we're
okay.
in,
I was
which
trying to
kind of
tie it
brings
in,
it
like,
full
branding
circle.
photos
But I
and, like,
think
what
I
is
am
the-
going to sign up for the class that she's going to host
Yeah.
in here. One, because obviously I think that's just support.
Mm-hmm.
You need that support. But then also we had a really good deep conversation and I just really connected with her. And through the past couple of months, I've been following her on social media and her stories just keep popping up. And everything she shares speaks to me. And I'm like,
Love that.
God is putting her content in the front of me,
your feed
consistently for a reason. And I reached out to her and I said, I'm just really drawn to what you're about and what you're talking about and what you're preaching. And I would love to get in just
Yeah.
to get in and talk to you and get you into the space. And so that's how we've gotten here, which is amazing, because after learning about you for even just the last hour and a half that I've been sitting and talking with you, I feel like what you speak about is just a foundation that everybody should be able to learn about. And so I love how you're preaching that and how you're sharing that on your social media.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
No, I feel like it's my calling.
Yeah.
Honestly, I do.
Yeah.
I feel like self-love, we all need to know how to show ourselves love. And when we're able to show ourselves love, we're able to pour into other people.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so I'm ready to start helping other people do that
Yeah.
inside, because I haven't always been this way. I
Yeah.
was telling you, I used to be the complete opposite, where I was very negative and very sad and depressed and all those negative emotions. And I'm no longer that way anymore.
Right.
And so I'm ready to help other people get out of that as well.
Right.
Because
Through
I think
a lot of work.
Yeah, I think there's so many people that don't know how, right? Or if they think of self-care or self-love, there's a guilt factor tied to it, or there's a factor of like, hey, I don't deserve this, right? Or I don't know how to do it, or how to give yourself grace. So when you talk about this, you have experience working with kids. We just talked about this because I shared I'm going to have a middle schooler, and I'm a little worried about how middle school is going to go for her as a young girl, because girls can have tough times in school. So your focus primarily up to this point was girls, or kids, I should say. What is the new program going to be? Is there an age requirement? Is this for all ages? Is this mother-daughter? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, my mission is to teach all people in our community. So men, women, and kids.
Okay.
I will start off, my classes will be more focused. I mean, teenagers could definitely come, because you could take from that, and men too, and women. I will eventually get to the point where I am facilitating just classes for kids, but I will have it where the parents and the kids, like it's a parent and a kid
So
class.
it's tools.
Yes. So basically, yeah,
Exactly.
it's basically tools. I'm going to use the same like structure and model as a classroom teacher would, where I do like a learning target. Each class is going to have its own independent learning target. And so you could go to the first class or the second class and miss the third class and go to the fourth class, and you still understand what's going on. So they're all independent of each other. And yeah, basically I'm going to do turn-in talks. I'm going to kind of have that same vibe that I did as a classroom
What is
teacher.
a turn-in talk?
Right? I know.
Stop you.
I know what that
Yeah,
means.
like how do
Yeah.
Turn
So
and
you
talk.
pose a question.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you say, now turn and talk to your partner.
Correct.
And
Yep.
then
Oh.
you guys turn and talk to each other. And then, end it. And then everybody like can share out at that point. So you'll learn from me, but we'll also learn from each other.
Yeah.
And then we'll set goals. We'll just work on the tool and be able to utilize the tools and the strategies and the resources that I provide in your daily life.
So everybody needs self-love, right? There's no doubt about it. But do you have any focus groups, or do you see yourself doing any focus groups on maybe people that struggle with anxiety or a little bit of depression? Because I think that's a different type of education than just someone that wants to feel better about themselves. There's people that have struggles with social skills or, day-to-day skills. Is that your target audience?
I wouldn't say that it's going to be towards like those terms or those labels of anxiety or depression, because the tools that I'm going to help you with.
Heads up, folks. Interest rates are falling. But as of September 23rd, 2024, you can still lock in a 6% or higher yield with a bond account at public.com. That's a pretty big deal, because when rates drop, so can the interest you earn on your cash. A bond account allows you to lock in a 6% or higher yield with a diversified portfolio of high yield and investment grade corporate bonds. So while other people are watching their returns shrink, you can sit back with regular interest payments. But you might want to act fast, because your yield is not locked in until you invest. The good news? It only takes a couple of minutes to sign up at public.com. Lock in a 6% or higher yield with a bond account, only at public.com. Brought to you by Public Investing, member FINRA and SIPC. Yield to worst is not guaranteed. Not an investment recommendation. All investing involves risk. Visit public.com/disclosures for more info.
Looking for excitement? Chumba Casino is here. Play anytime, play anywhere. Play on the train, play at the store, play at home, play when you're bored. Play today for your chance to win and get daily bonuses when you log in. So what are you waiting for? Don't delay. Chumba Casino is free to play.
Experience social gameplay like never before. Go to Chumba Casino right now to play hundreds of games, including online slots, bingo, Slingo, and more. Live the Chumba life at ChumbaCasino.com. VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
You could use it if you
combat
have
all of
anxiety
those.
or
Yeah.
depression or anything
Or if
like
you
that.
don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
if you don't. Because,
Okay.
I mean, really thinking about somebody who has anxiety, being able to learn how to bring it back to the present and to, focus on the now. That's a form of self-love, but it also will help you with
Correct.
anxiety.
Yeah.
So it's,
I love that.
A lot of it's tied together, right? I mean,
It is.
traditionally, if you're fighting with depression, right, it's because you're struggling with your own self-love and your own confidence or whatever that vice is that you're struggling with in that moment, right? When you take care of yourself and you have that self-love back to you, a lot of that other stuff starts to go away or starts to heal, right, ultimately. So that makes sense that it's more broad spectrum as opposed to like, well, if you're just dealing with anxiety, then you should come, right, type of thing. So I like that. I think that's a really awesome way to do that.
I always say self-love is mental health,
Yes.
right? It is. So when you can focus on you and you learn how to love yourself and take care of yourself and prioritize yourself and know your worth, then it helps in all those other avenues too. So
What do you say to men specifically that are trying to be those rough and tumble, like, I don't need my feelings, I don't need this. I'm not one of those guys, you can tell, very manly man. But definitely
He
someone
cried
that's...
on an episode.
Yes, I cried a couple episodes ago, right? I'm much more in tune with my emotions than the normal guy is, thankfully. But why do you think there's such that stigma around men to be like, no, we don't talk about our feelings, and if we do, it's very surface level, and I'm done, and I'm onto it. I'm onto the next thing, right, type of thing. For how can we as men overall deal with that better, or what can we look for to maybe cope with some of those, stigmas against us?
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is generational. So that's why we have men that way, right? But I do think it just comes down to men being vulnerable. So like you right now sharing your story, how you're crying and you're more sensitive, right? Because men really do have feelings, and it's not just, or emotions, I should say, and it's not just anger, right? Because everybody has emotions. And so when we have more men being vulnerable, when we start celebrating that, when we start sharing that, when they start feeling proud of themselves, when we start teaching young boys to do that, I think is huge. Even in school and education, a big piece that I love is that I teach that to all kids. I do Mindful Mondays, and I'm always talking about feelings or naming your feelings, or, it's okay to cry. It is. It's very releasing. Let's cry. Let's do it. And so I think it starts there. But then obviously with the parents, because they're the ones teaching it. So.
Correct. Yeah. And I think a lot of it too is, I feel like when something happens to you, whether it's a trauma, whether it's a big life event, right, you have two options traditionally, right? As a man and as a person in general, you can either weigh into the feelings and feel them, right? Or you can bottle them up and deal with it never, or 30 years when it's finally broken out and you're like, oh my gosh, why did I wait so long to deal with my dad's death, my divorce, my whatever it is, right? Type of thing at that point. And I think trying to continue to be around those people, especially men, that you can just have those straight up conversations like, no, how are you? Right? Like for real. And I've been around guys and try to be around guys like that, because it makes it so much easier to go about your daily life, I feel like, right? And say, okay, I know that I can say, no, I'm really struggling with this, and I need to voice that. Because I can tell it to these ladies, and they're great sounding boards, and that's helpful, but they're not men. They've never been men. They don't know what it's like sometimes in that capacity, and vice versa. I'll never know what it's like to be a woman, but I can listen when they're having a hard time, right? But to be in that community, I feel like is so important. And if you can pass it on to that next generation and say, yep, this is what dad struggled with, but if I can pass it on to you, I've got 3 boys at home. So trying to pass that on to each one of them in their own way is a huge goal of mine for sure.
Well, they have a good role model, I can tell.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
And removing the shame, right?
Correct,
I mean,
yeah.
I've talked about it, and I went through counseling, life coaching, whatever you want to call it, for years during my divorce. At the end of the day, like, Michael Jordan has a coach, Brett Favre has a coach, Tiger Woods has a coach. So making it a positive instead of this negative.
Correct,
I would love to see the world paradigm shift to getting the mental help and support and self-love and self-care and all these things that you need being a positive instead of it being shameful or a negative. So I love that you're kind of marketing it that way almost, right? Like, this is a class for me to teach you the best way to move forward, not to have you feel shame because you're coming here, but let's break the pattern. I mean, so many of us get stuck in these cycles, and I'm like, why do I hear my mother's voice coming out of my mouth when I say things? And it was funny on the way here, I was thinking, I shared with you guys that my son got in a horrible car accident last week. And I was thinking, the first thing he asked me is, are you mad? And immediately I shifted, because I remember not telling things or wanting to tell things to my parents because I thought they would be mad. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I get it now. They're like, as long as you're okay.
Correct.
Right? I'm not happy about a car being totaled, but as long as you're okay. So if we can shift that pattern or paradigm for future, saying like, I want you to tell me because I'm so grateful you're okay.
Right.
And just changing the mindset is super important. So I love that you're branding this and doing something with it.
We talk about that in our home all the time too. I mean, with the boys, my oldest will be 8 this. I do. I know. We have.
Are they on set today?
They might be. Yes. Yeah. They're off camera.
They're manning the cameras.
Correct.
Have you hear little voices?
Yes,
and little
exactly.
Feet.
But
we're multitasking.
Trying our best, right? But my oldest will be 8 this year, and continuing to instill in him that if something is bothering you or if something is going on and you want to talk about it, you have a safe space, whether it's at mom's house or dad's house, right? Type of situation. And their mom does a great job of that as well, saying, hey, like, I'm not here to condemn you because all of us have messed up. We were all silly kids and teenagers in college and we've done all the things, right? And to say, hey, okay, I'd rather you come and talk to me because something is bothering you, something did happen.
Yeah.
Yes, I might be upset in the moment, but how can we fix it? How can we move forward together? And can I share something from maybe when I struggled with something like that as well?
Right.
You know, type of thing.
And learn.
Correct. Yeah. So you obviously still have to parent.
Which is a form of self-love.
Correct. You still obviously have to parent, right? You still have to say, yep, you broke that thing.
You made a mistake.
Correct. You are in trouble. There's a consequence, but also you don't want to be their best friend, but you still want to be a sounding board, right? Because you still obviously have to deal with some sort of a punishment or consequence, right? As you mentioned, but also say, nope, like, I want you to trust me and come to me, even if you know you're going to get in trouble, but just say, hey, like, I know that you're not, it was our parents' generation, right? Where it was hit first and ask questions later, right? Type of situation, or the discipline, right? Type of thing, right? So trying to, you know, obviously that's not how our society is anymore, right? Type of thing. And just continuing to say, okay, like, let's talk about it. Let's deal with it. Let's learn from it. And I still love you. I tell that to my boys all the time. I'm like, I love you very much, and I'm sad that this thing happened in this moment. However, that doesn't change how I feel about you, right? Type of thing. And kids, I think, need to hear that because they don't hear that a lot from other places that they're in, because it's all about me, and my, as opposed to like, no, like, we, our community, our family, love you and still are with you despite what you may have done.
Right. Yeah, because we all make mistakes.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right. And they're going to.
Yes.
We're going to as parents.
Going to.
Yeah.
Going to
100%.
So
we all
I think
do.
learning through that. So when do you think you're kicking this off, and how can people find out more about how to be a part of this and what you're going to be offering?
I love that. So my first class I decided is going to be September 8th, which is a Sunday. So on my social media, I always promote Self-Love Sundays.
Love that.
That way it's like a day to be intentional about showing your self-love. And then eventually it'll get to the point where it's just natural. You think self-love is a mindset. So you'll start to pick up like, oh, this is self-love, right? And you're thinking in your head. So I'm going to launch it on September 8th, which is Self-Love Sunday.
Okay.
And I have a website. I have my classes up, but I'm still working on figuring all the details of that out. So that's why I haven't like officially launched it yet.
Sure.
But it's available. It is Whole Self Love is the name of my business. It's a w.self-love. And so that's how it is branded, I guess, is what I would say.
So they can find you on
Social media. I'm on Instagram. You can find me under Amber Broihier, Amber_Broihier.
You're going to have to spell that last name.
Okay, ready? It's Broihier.
Not how it looks.
No.
It's French.
Good.
It's French.
Brilliant. Is there a little
very
accent on the top?
fancy.
Yeah.
I love to, because you share a lot of your story that has brought you to where you are today with self-love, and you preach that. And for somebody personally who has struggled through postpartum depression and who has struggled with self-love, you know, back when I was a new mom to my first child, but then again, learning who I am this time with my second child, I think God put it on my heart. Like I was really drawn to some of even just the memes that you share that are they speak so much truth that I really, truly do think so many people will get value out of. And shedding light into what the message is that you're trying to give is that you are allowed to choose you and you should be the love of your own life.
Absolutely.
I love what that's about. So I feel like so many people need to learn about you, and all you have to do is go to her social media because she is authentic in what she does. And you do a really good job of sharing just that vibrant smile. And it's just very, you're just drawn to it. So
being vulnerable. I think that's one of my biggest things. Is I was telling you earlier that speaking about your traumas, whatever they may look like to anybody, is very healing. And so I use social media as a way to honestly heal myself as well, because I share my stories. I share my narcissistic relationships. I share my mother was a meth addict. And so I share all of the healing and when I cry, I talk about when I cry, because we cry and crying is good and we need to cry. We need 100%. To release. And so I use my social media to be vulnerable and to hopefully inspire other people to be vulnerable, because that's how we heal is we need to be vulnerable
and talk about it
So I have a question.
Saying it out loud versus keeping it inside changes things.
I have a question, because I don't know anything about you other than what I've learned in the last 15 minutes. But what was it that switched for you to say, I need to learn to love myself? What was it did you wake up one day and say, okay, I need to commit to myself? Or how did you get from this point to this point? You said you were not always this person. So what was the switch that flipped?
I would say, a lot of things. There was a couple things that I kind of all came together, but I used to drink like heavily. And I would get so drunk and then I would be so sad and I would just cry. And I knew, and I, really thought of, about the purpose of my life and being here. And so that, and along with, I reached out to a life coach, who really opened the doors in a lot of different ways. So taught me some things, some different strategies and some skills and, different things to look into. And also I believe, I was telling you earlier, just like my belief in God as well. And me, looking at him or the energy or however you view God, helped me to recognize that I needed to change. I think having babies was a big piece of it. I didn't want to be generationally like creating those patterns for my children. And I think my big self-love journey started about 5 years ago when I got divorced, and really choosing myself. I say I had, my ex-husband is an amazing man. He really is. He just wasn't for me. And when I started to find myself and realize and know who I was, I just knew that he wasn't my life partner. And so I just made that switch and left, and have just been discovering myself and who I am and showing myself love every day, because I never had it as a kid. I never was shown love. So I realized ultimately that I have to learn how to love myself
before anybody else
can properly love me. Otherwise I will allow people to continue to treat me like dirt, I guess.
Right.
So and even going back to your comment earlier about telling your kids when they're, they made a mistake and that you still love them, which I think is really important, but always bringing it back to asking them, do you still love yourself? Like making them aware.
Correct,
because we can learn as adults to love ourselves, but I wish I would have learned how to do that at a young age. But I didn't have any mentors or any family or anybody teaching me how to do that. And so again, just to kind of make the process quicker so they're not having to figure that out when they're adults. Like asking those questions. My girls, I ask them on Self-Love Sunday, what'd you do today to show your self-love, girls? And they are able to tell me, and so it's just those little things that.
And I think educating people on what that is. So many people don't know, like what's the difference between self-care and self-love, and what does self-love mean? And so just learning that is something that we need to understand in order to be able to execute it. I think there's a movement coming. And you're going to be in the front of it.
I think so too. I think this is kind of, especially in our area, it's untapped. In-person classes, you can go to social media. Social media is obviously such a humongous place, and you can go to social media and you can type in up on the top of Instagram, self-love, and accounts will come up and you will see all of these people. But to have somebody local, I was saying to you, I was like, are you going to offer one-on-one? Because my conversation with you for the hour and a half was probably the most healing conversation I've had with an individual in a very long time on a one-on-one basis.
Amazing.
And to a point where we have only sat down for the first time today.
Yeah.
And for that to be already so valuable is, I mean, I can't even imagine how many lives you're going to change, because in our area, it's such an untapped industry and it's kind of taboo to talk about. And so the value that's in that, to be in person and to be able to teach people these tools that you've lived through, that you've learned over trials and tribulations and, you know, traumas that you would never want another person to go through, but have shaped you, so that that information that you're going to share, they can take and apply it to their own life. I think is such it's so beautiful. I don't know. I feel like it's so drawing and really a cool thing to offer. So that's really awesome.
And what a better place than this atmosphere to learn how to love yourself. This is so beautiful. And
Well, and
you can't
she's
help but
gonna-
feel good in here.
Yeah, and she's going to go all over. So
Yeah.
she's going to host her class. You're going to host your classes kind of at any venue that you can kind of find. She was talking about going next door and hosting one, because coffee is a form of self-love in her eyes, which we all agree with.
It's my favorite self-love.
It's our favorite form of self-love. It's a love language. And so to even just be one class here, 2 classes, however many it ends up being, is amazing. But even just to spread that joy and to spread that message into other venues as well around our area, and even, you know, wherever else you go, is so cool.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing. So one more time, Amber, tell us how people can find out more about your classes and offerings, what your social media handles are, and when they start.
Perfect. Okay. So September 8th, my first class, it is going to be actually what is self-love. That is my first class.
Love that.
And it will be, you know, a dabble in everything self-love. I mean, there's a lot that goes into self-love. And so then all my other classes will each be specifically tailored to individual parts of
So
self-love.
if you miss one, you can come to a different one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll have like how to set boundaries is one class, and
Oh,
another
sign
one's
me up.
like how to.
Mandy and I will be there.
It's like,
Yeah.
Well, I
I'm
have none.
subscribed.
I have none.
It's true. We love you though.
Do we
Right.
start by admitting, like, hi, I'm Mandy, and I
I
have
think
no
so.
boundaries?
Is this kind of like an AA? Like, hi. It has been 15 years since I had boundaries.
That's so funny. Yeah, no.
So I didn't mean to
That's a good idea. Yeah.
like sidebar.
Can we get
Yeah.
t-shirts made? I have no boundaries.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, so one class will be like boundaries. The next one will be like identifying and naming our feelings. And how do we do that? Like just each class will be independent of each other. And so September 8th is going to be the first one, What is Self-Love? And you can follow me on Instagram at Amber_Broihier, BROIHIER. Got it down. I'm going to have to do that.
Yeah.
Also on Facebook Business, I have w.selflove, so whole self-love. And my website is wselflove.com.
Okay.
And
Great.
yeah.
And one more quick question for anybody that might be thinking, I don't want to come into a group setting and share my junk or share my story, or I don't want to, what was it? Turn and talk?
Turn and talk, yeah.
I don't want to turn and talk to somebody because I
share.
maybe am a little anxious in social situations. Are those people still able to come and benefit from a group setting like that, do you think?
Absolutely. I'm a teacher, right? So I
Right.
have students in my classroom that are that way. You don't ever have to share. That's a choice. Will I encourage you to? Because vulnerability, like I said, is very healing.
Yeah.
And maybe after you've been to 4 or 5 classes, you're feeling comfortable and confident enough to share. And that you should feel proud of yourself for that.
Love that.
So yes, absolutely. If you choose not to, you don't have to.
Okay.
That's definitely not something you have to.
Amazing.
Not a requirement. Not a
Yeah,
requirement.
Well, normally we don't stand on the corner with a sign saying, do you want to be on our podcast today?
I'm not against that idea, though.
But today it worked out.
God works in mysterious
Correct.
ways.
Yeah.
Because I feel very aligned right now, and I can't even tell you how happy I am with it. So great to have you.
Yeah, thank you for
And
being here.
Yeah,
If
wonderful.
you guys don't, you should follow her. She's going to be sharing so much more amazing content, and I love to see how this journey is where this journey is going to take you for sure.
Thank
Love
you
it.
for
And such a
having me.
wonderful
Yeah,
thing
thank you
you're
for being
doing
here.
to help move the needle positively for mental health. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Awesome. Thanks for being on with us, Amber.
This was amazing. Thank you. For
Yeah.
So fun.
Remember, guys, you can listen and watch wherever
where?
you choose to get your podcast. I can't
Spotify,
remember.
Spotify and Apple Podcasts. There you go. Or wherever you get your
You
podcast.
can find us on all the socials.
Typically on Mondays.
As well.
And
Typically,
then
yep.
we will be
Special
taking
Tuesday.
some time off shortly to
Yep.
announce season 3 coming soon.
Yeah,
so
regroup and
stay tuned.
yeah.
One more episode of season 2 to wrap things up, and then we'll kick off the fall, as Mandy suggested in the group chat, for
Yes.
football
season. Might as
football
well.
season.
I mean,
Are we
I
have
am
any Packer
marketing.
players on, you think? Maybe.
Maybe.
Or former.
That would be sweet.
Coaches.
There you go. Just Matt
Baxter,
LaFleur.
you would be the one to know that because
Not
we're
gonna-
manifesting for you that you're
Yeah.
going to work for the Packers someday. So
One day. We're working
day.
on it.
Get
We're
it
working
on
on
that.
it.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well,
fun.
thank you for watching and listening, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Heads up, folks. Interest rates are falling. But as of September 23rd, 2024, you can still lock in a 6% or higher yield with a bond account at public.com. That's a pretty big deal because when rates drop, so can the interest you earn on your cash. A bond account allows you to lock in a 6% or higher yield with a diversified portfolio of high yield and investment grade corporate bonds. So while other people are watching their returns shrink, you can sit back with regular interest payments. But you might want to act fast because your yield is not locked in until you invest. The good news? It only takes a couple of minutes to sign up at public.com. Lock in a 6% or higher yield with a bond account. Only at public.com. Brought to you by Public Investing. Member FINRA and SIPC. Yield to worst is not guaranteed. Not an investment recommendation. All investing involves risk. Visit public.com/disclosures for more info.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.